Today we're going to talk about Prospector, which is an automation game. To give you a point of reference, think Astroneer, but top-down pixel art game, and that's essentially Prospector. Prospector is quite a bit more simple than Astroneer though, but there's a lot of automation you can be doing. So if you like automation games, then you'll probably like Prospector too. The premise of the game is that you as a prospector are sent to an uninhabited planet to gather valuable resources and essentially ship them back to a corporation. And if you don't manage to fill your quotas, you will be left to die on this planet. So today we're going to go over a quick overview of what Prospector is. And before getting into that, it's worth noting that I'm not necessarily the biggest automation games kind of guy. Like, I think automation is fun in games such as Core Keeper, etc. But I don't tend to play pure automation games. And this is very much a pure automation game. That being said, Prospector does not overstay its welcome. This is a fairly short game. It took me roughly 14 hours to complete it, and this is with some AFK time, and I am currently only missing one achievement which I can't get to pop. So Prospector is definitely a very short game, but that's not to say that you can't spend longer with the game, because if you enjoy intense automation and making these complex setups, then you can definitely continue playing after you've beaten the main story and creating bigger and bigger automation loops. You start out the game with just yourself, your ship, and your mining beam. And so your goal quickly becomes to start gathering resources so you can start fulfilling orders for the corporation that sent you here. To gather resources, you use your mining beam and you can simply shoot various resources, whether they are trees or rock formations or various minerals. There are also some enemies and prospectors, as you can see here, but they are very few in between, and there is very little variety. So combat is a very, very small portion of the game and is not something that is particularly interesting. The main challenge you'll find in Prospector is the resource gathering and the automation itself. And on top of that, you also need to keep an eye on your oxygen. As you can see here, the white bar is slowly depleting, and it will always be depleting when I'm away from my power grid. As you can see here, now that I am close to my power grid, my oxygen is no longer depleting. You're not very limited by this oxygen, however, I should point out, because you will get various ways to refill it, such as eating food will refill it. So it's not something that particularly hinders your exploration, but it is something to be aware of, that the game is essentially a pseudo-survival game in this sense. As mentioned, the main premise of the game is to fulfill orders for the corporation that sent you here. And these orders can consist of various things. As you can see here, we need to get a certain amount of berries and a certain amount of oil. It could also be various metals or various research specimens. Like, there's a lot of different combinations here. And through shipping out orders, you will rank up. And as you rank up, you unlock more and more crafting options, such as rank 1 here. You can see you'll unlock a mineral extractor, which will allow you to essentially automate your mining efforts to some degree. Prospector has 6 planets, and each planet has a faction tied to it. So essentially each planet has at least one main quest, and all these quests basically consist of gathering a bunch of materials to ship out, either in the form of orders or to build something specific for the contract giver. You can also visit 3 of the other planets aside from the starting planet, and these offer different crafting resources than the initial starting planet here. So there is a fair bit of variety in terms of the environment, but ultimately it's not a very long game, and as such there's not that much different stuff to do either. I also don't find the exploration particularly compelling, because there's not that much to find really. All you're looking for are these resources so you can ship them out, and then there's some rarer upgrade materials, but these are not particularly rare. As you can see, it's these pink ones on the map, and they're pretty easy to find. And they do restock as well after a while. So exploration is not something I would say is a main draw for this game, at least not for me. Something I did enjoy is all the upgrades available in the game. As you've already seen, you can unlock a jetpack, which will allow you to go a lot faster and also fly over water. There's a lot of other upgrades, probably like 10-15 upgrades, both for yourself and your robot here. And I'm not going to spoil them all, but the upgrades are quite meaningful, and I really enjoyed getting them. It felt really good unlocking new upgrades. So that's something I really enjoyed about the game. Something I didn't enjoy so much is that the currency is mostly inconsequential. You do need currency to unlock different planets, but it's not really an issue. At least it wasn't for me, because I'd easily gotten to the required currency by the time I'd done the orders or fulfilled the contracts needed. So the only real use for currency is at importers, which you unlock later in the game, which essentially allows you to buy most of the resources in the game, which, I don't know, I think it would have been nice if there was some bigger goals to use the currency for. But that's not really a thing here, and I guess that's okay. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the automation. And I apologize in advance, my base is a huge mess, so don't look at this for inspiration. This shouldn't really be completely redone. I'm just going to go over some of the different crafting machines, what options you have, and so on. So for starters, one of the first thing you'll need is a furnace here to craft different ores, and these all take different resources, as we've been talking about. You can essentially craft various amounts. You can just start it and it will start crafting. You can craft from storage. You have these silos and it will pull from the storage very early on after an unlock you get. As you can see here, I have little robots gathering stuff for me. You can also put crafting machines on infinite mode, and you can build a robot that will restock them as long as the required resources are nearby. Aside from the furnaces, there are roughly a handful of other crafting machines. And typically these crafting machines requires parts that are crafted at other crafting machines. So at the furnace you smelt bars, and at the sheet press you make sheets out of the bars, and at the optical table you can make electrical wire out of sheets and ingots, and so on. So there's a lot of interconnectivity between the different crafting stations. Aside from that, you also need to power your base. Early on, the only way to power your base is with wind turbines, which you need to place on top of wind fields, as you can see here. They give a certain amount of power, and you need to make sure that everything is connected with wires, so there's power. Later on, you'll also unlock other options for electricity, but I'm not going to go into that now because spoilers. Aside from that, you will have farming. You can both do manual farming by simply just placing stuff down on the ground, and you can also do some more automated farming here with the farming stations, and there's fertilizer that you can craft for this. And there's also animals that you can catch, and they will give you different produce depending on which kind of crops you're feeding them. Aside from that, you have conveyor belts, as you might have seen. And the reason this conveyor belt is moving so slowly is because the intake down here is very slow in accepting them. As you can see here, the final product moves a lot faster. Aside from that, you also have mineral extractors. And as you can see here, if I put a mineral extractor down here on top of a deposit, it will start harvesting. And I've already put down a conveyor belt here, so it will just start shipping them off into my silo up here. The game also has belt feeders, which you can use logistic bots to essentially fill up and move stuff from one area to another, so you can make sure that you have the resources you want in the specific area you're trying to craft. So I know this sounds pretty complex if you're not familiar with automation games, but I'm not that familiar with automation games either. And as I've already mentioned, my base is a huge mess, and I've just kind of been putting stuff down randomly, and I have had to do a little bit of cleanup, but overall the game is pretty easy, and I'd say that basically anyone should be able to play this game and complete it without too much issue there. The real challenge comes if you have a personal desire to create more elaborate automation. So let's talk final thoughts. I think Prospector is a fun and chill game, but if combat and exploration are your main drivers for gameplay, then Prospector is probably not the game for you. That being said, I think it's a really fun game. The automation is fun. It's accessible. Anybody can play it. You don't have to have prior automation experience. I think the game would be a really good second monitor game. So if you're watching a YouTube video or a Netflix show while playing, I think that's the ideal way to play this game. You can just hang out, you can chill, you can do some resource gathering, some light automation, or some more complex automation. Prospector is, however, definitely not a revolutionary game in terms of automation or anything, but it is fun and it has all the basic tools required to have a fun automation game. Obviously, I would personally have liked to see more in-depth exploration and combat, and some more stuff to do with the currency would have been really nice, but maybe that has more to do with me as a player than it does have to do with the game. Regardless, I do recommend Prospector if you're into resource gathering / automation games. And with that, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider dropping a like on the video, it's really appreciated. If you want to see more reviews, consider subscribing too. Regardless, thank you so much, have a great day, until next time.